Good evening. I'm Nick Tucker with the Historical Fencing Guild. Before we get into tonight's programming, we will both acknowledge the fact that my cat, Stuart, is running amok under my legs, so at any point I may be interrupted with having to let him out of the study. But before I get into it, I do have some bills to pay. I want to remind you folks that the Historical Fencing Guild is made possible by support folks who buy the simple sword, the fighting axe, or the simple spear, by our good friends over at the Independent Creator Directory, that's IndieCD.org, which is a site for hosting the best artists, authors, and creatives so that you can find them, so that we can find them, and so that you can shop small and support small businesses and independent design. We're also made possible by... go to my book. The other books I sell on Hi. You were not really. We're made possible by the love and support of Stuart the Sword Cat. Cat, yes. I'm trying. May I please do my show? No, not at all. I can do my show just fine as long as you do. Okay. Anyway, my amazing Patreon members, who for as little as $1 a month are able to help me keep the money together to buy gear to review, upgrade facilities, donate gear, and in general help keep the lights on around here, because we aren't a major operation. I'm just trying to feed my wife, help feed my wife, help feed my son, help feed my cats, and help educate people. So Don Dulas, Off in the Woods, Frog G, Ronald Rain, Bladed Thesis, Brian K. Morris, Cindy Kep, Steve Augusta, Don Dulas again, I need to fix that, and Angelina Vaquera. Link, your services and generosity are deeply appreciated, and we really do appreciate it. Please remember that as Patreon members, you can at any point request for me to do video subjects, review matters. If there's a lower cross trainer you're thinking of getting, you're not sure, or you're looking for a specific trainer for a specific style, please use me as your resource. Now, I have to swing weapons, Cat. I can't do that while you're here. Well, whenever I refer to weapons on this channel, I am actually referring to trainers. Yes, sir. I'm going to try to get my stream done. My cat is very concerned about me for reasons I am not sure about, but he has just sunk his claws into my overshirt and is not letting go. So today I did get some great direct message questions I wanted to get into. Am I allowed to get into them? I'm allowed to get into them as long as or do you need to go down? You ready to go down? Okay. Whew, that will make this a little easier. Where did that axe go? I had an axe. Okay, well, I have an axe here. I have an axe here I can use. I was asked an interesting question. They're a fencer, or they're using fencing type, both saber and rapier, as their primary fighting style. They wanted to know, could they use an axe in their offhand? Now, this is what I was looking for. Sorry. This is my padded fake axe, so, I don't have to risk hurting anybody. This is, of course, though it's mostly rubbed off, the random acts of kindness. Now, this little boffer axe is a great example, a great tool for explaining why that axe can be used. Now, the concern that they had was, well, won't your hand both be targeted when you carry out with the grip, and just it doesn't leave your hand vulnerable? The short answer is yes, it is not guarded. Now, you can short shank it this way to have a little bit more protection and use it as a hooking element here and then punch out with the axe. That's something that can be done. The bigger the beard, the more protection you're going to have. But the axe works better when you use it like an axe. So what do I mean? If I arm you guys a little bit, okay? Let me see. If I put it over here, does that look better? Oh, that looks better. Excellent. Now you have some type of weapon on me. Right now, it is the sword simulating Object of Doom. If I'm going to parry it with an axe, it's not a flat and let it slide maneuver. I'm not deflecting alone with it. When you parry with an axe, you want to use the concussion of the axe to get that out. And if you can, it's a little hard with round on round, but you can actually bind. Do you see how that's going? I could actually bind with a bearded axe and catch and keep the captured weapon offline till they do a very tight disengage that they have to do something about, which can easily be followed. So they can chase having to get away from the axe quite a bit. And while they're dealing with that, your other hand is free for whichever nefarious thing you want to do to them. So it absolutely, or I would do to you, is viable. You can hit and then swing down it with a blade transfer. This is one of my favorite techniques when I only have a short axe against a longer weapon, is to catch it, push it, then transfer to free up the axe, because now I've gained the inside and I'm very close to them. So a nice blunted, what in some systems they would call a broken cut in some machete systems. Instead of the flow through, the hit and go. Nice quick little chop to this neck region tends to do things to make people not be people anymore and reduce them to piles of meat and possessions. So, yes, Virginia, you absolutely can use a hand axe as a parrying device. And that brought me to another great point. I was asked another question, and it was delivered to me in a, shall we say, chastising manner of Nick. You know, you don't really focus on the great swords. You don't really focus on full armored combat. You've dabbled in Rondel, but you really don't live there. Why? Why don't you focus on these, these big, very specific weapons? And my problem is this. Weapons of warfare are different than weapons of defense and or weapons of opportunity. And when you look at the study of weapons from a vaguely practical sense at all, you want to use what's available to you most likely. So, yes, someone could train in arming sword all day, all night, every day, and be a farmer with a sword simulator. But when the the neighboring barony decides to invade, or the barbarians have landed at the beach and are coming in, you're not going to have access to that kind of weapon. This is why so many systems were built around agricultural weapons. Meyer goes into a lot of discussion on things like this, which is a sickle. Now, a sickle, and I've covered this, but I realize it's been a long time since I've covered this. I've covered this since this was new over at Purple Heart Armory. You can get these. I got these 4 for $60. So it ended up being $15 a piece, and that's after everything, shipping and handling and everything. So I was able to take the 4 swords that I was using and then put 4 people with a sword and a sickle and get them armed and working with this as an offhand weapon. Now remember, a sickle is not a shuttle, which looks very similar but is sharpened on the outside. It is sharpened on the inside. This is an actual gardening implement. I have a couple I am restoring because for certain gardening uses, even today, it's much faster and much more efficient and so much quieter to simply pull this off, go, I need to cut these weeds off, chop, 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 and, cut this down, chop, 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 and go. So this is something that many lower class medieval people, lower class Renaissance people, basically till like the 1920s and later, these were very common home and farm gardening tools. You have to look at this in think of this in terms with like a hoe. You know, sickles are very ubiquitous. So what you have is something that's, well, it's sharp and it's metal. I can do harm with it. Better know how to use it and how it works. So a lot of Meyer's very dramatic cuts and swirling techniques, I believe, having looked at the system, even though it's not my favorite because I will always be a rapierist at heart, is to make it very adaptable to the martial weapons that anybody might have access to. And because these look odd compared to traditional sword fights, they look very interesting in a bout. Now, obviously, you aren't going to do your standardized stabs with one of these, and that's fine. But you do have all the blocks, and it hooks, so it does everything that axe kind of does better. You can easily remove joints with the proper application of something like this. You can rend things. You don't even need a lot of force because the natural curve, even if you don't fully hit like in the sweet spot, is going to pull around. And if there's no armor involved, you have just circumnavigated with the blade an edged weapon in a single cut. This is devastating. It's lightweight and it's not specialized. It's something you would find common. I believe, to answer the question about why I don't pursue a lot of the weapons of warfare, it's like the airsoft guys who do milsim, trying to use what they're doing for milsim as home defense drills. That being, they are not likely to ever get their hands anywhere near a Heckler & Koch MP5. A full auto MP5? No way. Is it doable? Sure. You just have to pay a vast amount of money in very specific licensing. You have to be able to acquire one. You have to be able to license and get that. And it's a huge pain in the derriere. So they're training, but they're training on something they can't get access to. Now, in the terms of firearms, an AR platform, so something that works like, you know, what you think of when you say an AR-15, an M4, something like that, is a ubiquitous firearm in many places in America. It is very, very common. It is a very popular form of semi-automatic rifle. It has large capacity. It has a modular design. It's fairly reliable. So knowing that is more likely. Now, even if that's ubiquitous, you're not going to have even that in a lot of places. A lot of poor folks might only have a pump shotgun and some kind of deer hunting rifle, 308 or something like that. It makes sense if you're going to drill in the means, the application, the manual of arms, how to use it, how to take care of it, how to clean it, what it does of that, then something like an FN SCAR or, oops, sorry, I bumped my keyboard. A Barrett 50 cal. I mean, these are not weapons most people will have access to. So why waste time and energy learning them? The same way that operates is the same way that medieval weaponry operated. People get confused with the tip of the spear numbers versus support. And especially when you get to the high Middle Ages, when you've got people in what would become jousting armor, full plate. It took a lot of people to care for it, maintain it, clean it, feed the horse, take care of the horse, etc. Maintain, clean, sharpen, maintain the weaponry. Many times there would be people whose jobs were to carry the large weapons behind the knights till they were required. So for me and my personal interests and my thought processes, the more extreme a weapon is, the less likely I am to be drawn towards it. Now it's like, but Nick, you're a rapierist. Yes, I love rapiers, but I tend to love short rapiers. Things that get near that line of, is it a side sword, is it a rapier? And of course, cup hilt rapiers, because they're simply the best protection that you can get in a rapier. And a rapier, while somewhat used in warfare, somewhat, not as much, that people really, really quickly like sabers better, was a sidearm. But remember, this is a sidearm to a primary. What were the three guys in France who were protecting the king? Musketeers. Why does that matter? They weren't called the Three Swordsmen. Now, we love the epic flowing battles. We love the clank and the rhythm and theatrical exchanges and the physicality and the mental chess of period swordsmanship. It is a great passion of mine, but I also don't delude myself into thinking it's more than it was. And it's ironic because in many ways, we don't have that problem when we look at a katana. Yeah, okay. Because a katana filled very much the same role as a rapier. The samurai had guns. The samurai had very formidable bows, and they had very formidable spears. You're thinking yari. So you got your yari, you got your long bows, and the Japanese longbow style is elegant. It's really a very different, very beautiful style to behold, and it is treated in Japan especially with the same kind of ritualized respect as many other sword-based styles. Archery in America has never had that kind of impact, because by the time America was America, we went in the land of firearms. Far more. Firearms had outpaced swords. They were still present. Many what I consider peak swords were developed. We're looking at the 1783 King Charles III, King Charles IV. I always get that number flipped. Spanish broadsword, the colonial with that beautiful wrap. I've got a moderate proximity of one over here, facsimile. Beautiful, beautiful, elegant peak of weaponry that can be easily drawn. But that's specific. And a lot of people, very different from my approach, there is always an element of LARPing. There's always an element of fantasy when you get into a level of historical training. In part because very often we've had to rediscover, rebuild the styles. In part, there's a lot of, frankly, whimsy involved in much of the study. And it's very different than when you were studying combatives for practicality. We're looking at things like what Krav Maga is when it's done right. I'm a little concerned because Krav Maga has become popular enough that you're starting to get the wannabe McDojo things popping up about that. Not as often, but it's there. Aikido. I love Aikido. I love Iaido as a concept. But they've been very ritualized, very separated from practical application. And you see that in the tournaments. You see that in the demonstrations. But understanding how a machete works is not the same. Understanding how a sickle works. Now, especially a machete, because a machete is very much the weapon of poor people and often a weapon used in jungle settings, which means it was a weapon that opposed colonizers. So I think for a long time, the machete got a lot of, and machete-like weapons, we're talking bolo knives, gintungs, things like that, got negative response, got negative attention. It's a thing. History is written by the winners, folks. This is why we read our history books and we read even our first person sources, the people who were there, what they have written, always has to be read with critical thinking applied. Because every narrator, to some extent, is unreliable due to the nature of humanity. And the people who write the histories very often are paid for by the wealthiest. So therefore, the weapons of the nobility will always be put on a pinnacle above the weapons of the common man. This is why the dusuk is treated so questionably in many circles. This is why, in part, I delight in the sheer audacity of the German Messer and the reason for the German Messer's development. It's why I like, it starts with a B. I want to say it's a Brunheim knife. It's something like that. And I know I mispronounced it, but it's close enough you guys can find it. I have to bring the word up. Foreign languages aren't my forte. But it's essentially a long work knife, short machete kind of item. Sometimes it had a nagel as a handguard. People put handguards on their agricultural tools all the time because they get tired of beating up their hands. Understanding this brings me much more in tune, in line, and highlights my, frankly, kinship. Because as blessed as I am, and as well-fed as I am, and well-housed as I am, as truly wealthy as I am in the current state comparative to the past, I know what's going on roughly in the higher echelons of society, and I tend to identify more with the lower middle class or beneath because that's where my family stock largely comes from. So what resonates is not the weapons of the aristocracy. It's why I do rapier, but I do less small sword. Although I do think spadroons get a bad rap. Hot take. I think spadroons get a bad rap. They're not the greatest weapons at all, but they're not as bad as people give them, I think. That's on me. It is an opinion that's subject to change, but that's how I feel. Now, if you are writing me and you're wanting more of the great sword related, and usually it's people they want to see Meyer greatsword, and there are some great people who do Meyer based greatsword, and there are, my buddy Richie comes straight to mind, but it is not my forte. It is something I can play with. It's something I can make go. But it's not something I have felt the need to devote my life to because it doesn't speak to me in that very practical sense. Hello, are you coming back up? No? Okay. Just wanted to know if you were going to jump on my face, kid. Okay. Well, oh, you coming up? Okay, there we go. I'd rather you give me a warning. But the trick with all that is understanding what resonates. Now, there are a lot of great channels. Go seek them out. Now, if one of my Patreon members says, Nick, I'd like to see you do greatsword content, and it does overlap somewhat with areas I'm going, you might get my take on things like greatsword, but you have to understand that that take is going to be very Nickified. And it will fit my settings, it will fit my attitude, and it will fit my understanding and tolerance of the geopolitical and economic circles I'm most likely to travel in as something of a slightly over educated but underwealthy scholar. Now, I have talked for a long time on this. I hope that answers your question. The other thing is the practicality of not having an indoor space with high enough ceilings does impede a lot of that. So we will see. I'm going to the comments because I was on a great tear, and sir, yes, that's my thumb. Yeah, okay. Okay, I will pet your face. Sorry. Oh, okay, come over here. Now, let's see what we have in the comments. And we have evening. Hello, Don Dulas. How are you, my dear? And hi, Nick and Stuart. Yes, Stuart is loving on me today. We've been doing a lot of having to be out of the house to empty out my storage unit that's like 100 miles away. And because of that, the cats have been alone more than they are accustomed. They're okay with Mandy being out of the house. Occasionally okay with Sandra being out. They don't like when I'm out of the house because I'm the one who usually takes care of them. Most of all, my buddy Stuart here. So now, right. Well, my buddy. Best cat. Anyhow. Are we having another kitty stream like Wednesday art stream? Basically, he's having some difficulties. And I'm just going to work on it. And hi, Thesis. Did you see any reason why an axe could? Exactly. But people were genuinely asking, and so I answered. Evening all. Hello, Foxy. How are you? And hello, Sarah. I'm only second like, by the way. Whip. Well, please like, share this video. I am completely kiboshed by the algorithm because of the type of content on this program. Because I discuss weapons and training. It is, hey, Sarah. And hey there, Blade. And did someone say kitty stream? Yes. We are going to dip a bit, and you guys get to see my lovely orange cat, Stuart. You want to look at the light over there? Hey, you want to look at the light over there? Do you see you? That's you. Yeah, you don't care. Hi, kitty. And since I usually talk about food on the other strings, grilled steak, fried rice for dinner. Ooh, that's very nice. I just had some light sandwiches and some cottage cheese. Not thrilling materials, but I wasn't really feeling terribly good. I'm still not feeling terribly good, but we're making it work. I was just downstairs getting food. I'm glad. And that does something. Bigger weapons are interesting to wield. One of these days, I'm going to make my buffer version of the LK Chen Roaring Dragon. Well, and I do fight. I have an Odachi, which is almost as tall as I am. I have several great weapons simulators. I can make them go expressly outside in expressly open areas. So I am limited in their application. I have spears, but I can use my short spears far more adaptively. which is why I lean more towards I would rather have a pole arm or a spear than I would the excessively long weapons. Total length will be 4 foot 6.3 inches, so it'll be the longest weapon I own that isn't a pole arm. Absolutely. And hello, Miss Saren. Yes, this is my cat, Stuart. If you haven't met him, he is Stuart the Sword Cat, because he used to, before I was able to bring him into the house, he would come to our practices, and he would try to get love in the middle of our fighting bouts, because he is beautiful and warm and cuddly and hasn't got a single brain cell for self-preservation. He is absolutely fearless when he comes to it, except for a few things like the sound of hawks or coyotes. You don't like the coyotes, which is good. But yes, and hi, Stuart. But yes, I've been actually thinking about you, so I'm very glad to see that you're in the chat, Miss Sarah. Please message me when you get a chance, not for anything like project related unless you want to, but just tell me how you're doing. You were going through some things and then you went dark for a while, and I worry. And Foxy's saying hi, Stuart. And Thesis is saying hi, Sarah. We got lots of greetings. And now I'm on the right channel. It happens. It happens. Fun fact. So, oh, no. Oh, heavens, no. Johnny, no. No. I love Miss Saren. There was a while where I couldn't get into my Instagram and I had to do some stuff. I will fix that immediately after the show. I am dreadfully sorry. A cat invades sword practices. I'm surprised you didn't name him Fiore or some other, or one of the other HEMA masters. Well, he could, but you see, what he used to do during the period where I was very disabled, the farthest I could get when I was dealing with my nerve damage is out to my front porch. And I had to do physical therapy to build myself up to be able to walk, around in the house. I don't know if you know this, and I'll tell the story because it's been a while since I've told it. A few years ago, I was having severe nerve pains in my hands and feet, and I was dropping things. So I went to the the doctor to have some tests, and they had to do a nerve test. And they do a nerve test by basically clipping a needle with an electrode to one part of your finger or whatever, and then they stab an electrode into the muscle groups to see which ones are responding properly by shocking them. It is hideously painful, but normally it would tell. They did all my limbs, didn't like the results because to them it didn't make sense. Apparently I was missing nerves, which has happened to me before. They've done things and found I did not have nerves where most people do. And they re-administered it. Now, the problem with that is it literally pulled and sprained every muscle group in my entire body. And it inflamed every nerve system to all my limbs, nearly paralyzing me. It was hideously painful. And coupled with some other things that happened at the same time, we're going to say it was grim. Once again, I was looking at a wheelchair. I was looking at a few other things. And then I did a lot of therapy, to physical therapy and occupational to get my hands back, which are still sore right now. But it meant very limited walks. So a long time, my big walk would be I would make a walk down to my mailbox and back. And that might exhaust me for the rest of the day, but I would do that. And this was a little cat who was born next door. And he was my buddy. And he would walk with me. And he would walk with me there and back. He would sit on the porch and share my lunch. I would have tuna and mac and cheese, and I would give him the can with the tuna juice. And we would sit and have lunch. Now, I'm allergic to cats. So I didn't want to bring him into the house till I got tested and found out I was allergic to nearly everything. So why not keep the ones who actually appeal? Do some good. You need down? Okay. But that meant I had to basically rebuild my ability to walk, my ability to move, my ability to have the stamina. I'm still fighting it. I got up to 400 pounds. It was a bad time. And Stuart stayed with me. And we were getting the things together to be able to properly bring them in. And it was actually my birthday. It was my birthday. And he and his brother, who we called Noisy, because he would tap at you all the time. He would come visit too, but he wasn't as nice as Stuart. Noisy went into the cornfield, and I saw him go in, and the leaves shook, and basically something in the cornfield took that cat right there. And I scooped up Stuart, and I put him in the house. He had been sleeping on one of my old shirts that was wadded up in an old square bucket to keep him out of the rain outside. So he's just my buddy. I have 4 cats now, but all of them were saved under similar situations. But Stuart's my best buddy. I'll tell some of the other stories later. I'm sorry about that. I will check. That's a very good point. Oh, Stuart. Yes. There are a lot of ways to get hold of me. If I ever unfollow you out of the blue with nothing, and reach out and ask, talk. I rarely dislike people. Now, so that was the story of me and Stuart. A lot of my planned things for this year have been delayed, and for basically the rest of the month will be delayed because all our money and energy is going to pulling out the rest of the stuff in my storage unit because they decided to dramatically hike the rent on it. And I see Johnny says, everybody watch this. So I'm waiting to see with bated breath. Anyway, so I will be working on things in background. It jumped up to $200 to store our stuff. And we can't pay that. We can't pay that. So we're getting everything out. And it's a physically challenging thing for us to move and get the vehicles and make the runs. But we are doing it, and we are making excellent progress. I did not expect my back axle on my truck to break last week and end up costing me $1,200. But again, we are making it. It does mean a delay in some of the things I wanted to do, which keeps happening, and I find that bothersome. And Miss Saren, from the bottom of my heart, I am so sorry if you thought I was blocking you or something. Not at all. Genuinely. I am deeply troubled that you had that, you had to go through that feeling, and that you had that feeling that I would do something like that. It takes a whole lot for me to completely block somebody. But, so we've covered, let's see. We covered the axe question. We covered the, hey, Nick, why don't you use great swords, blah, yada, yada, yada. To clear up the katana question that came through from somebody. And, I get these direct messages. I do not dislike them. I just don't worship the ground they walk on. I have a trainer. I don't dislike Dow. I don't currently have a Dow trainer. Oh wait, yes I do. I have a Dow trainer. I just don't like that particular trainer. I have a gin store, a gin trainer with a interesting story, but with the gin, I associate it more with my Tai Chi kind of practice, and I've already tinkered how I do Tai Chi to fit my rapier better anyway. So calling it Tai Chi isn't really fair anymore. So I can't really cover that. But in other news, I have seen some trainers that are supposed to be coming out that look interesting, including a youth fetter from Purple Heart Armory. There's a lot of developments in new gauntlets that are going on, but they're also expensive. And yes, Thesis will be doing his Tea Time interview show tomorrow. If it helps, Miss Saren, I have a very anxious brain, and I suffer from RSD, rejection sensitivity dysmorphia, or dimorphia. Anyway, basically, I've had that kind of ingrained that people in the end are just going to bail on me. So it's a whole thing. I do what I do, fully expecting everyone to bail on me when it's inconvenient. And I still do it. I don't know if that's me being a glutton for punishment or stubborn. Take it out how you will. Now, it is fall. It is a great time for you guys to be doing your drills. It is a great time to be sparring outside. I am hoping as I get through this project, if I can get through it before Halloween, I will be able to go back to having outside practices. I'm sorry, it's getting hot under my neck. Now, we do want to start prepping for winter, which means gathering your resources. As soon as the dust settles from all the moving, I'll be able to get access to the leather, and I will do probably extended leather videos. I will probably have to, I wonder, let me look at something. I might, well, sorry about that. I might be able to, and I'll look at it right here. I don't care. I need to see what kind of mount this has. Oh, this has the ball mount, so I can't use this. I will have a new jury. Oh, I do. I have somewhere a new overhead jury rig overhead thing. So I'll be able to move the camera over, and instead of seeing me, you guys will see what I'm working on. And that's part of why I'm working on reorganizing things. Ignore the giant tentacles in the room. They just happen. It happens when you have pet shoggoths. They're very nice. Go on. Back, down. Anyhow, shenanigans happen this time of year. But I will be showing you guys a new trainer I got. And I got it at Goodwill. But I left it out in the hall and out in the living room. I was doing some drills with it. So, yep. Tentacles I've seen enough and done. These are for Halloween decorations and some shtick for my other show. Plus, one of my great passions is B or C grade horror movies. So having access to these means I could set up to do some kind of shtick for my other channel. I haven't gotten to do pre-recorded shtick in a while, so it's kind of a reward for all the hard work. So I'm expecting a lot of that. Now, I know we're at 45 minutes. Is there anything the chat would like to ask about? Anything you want specifically discussed? Or do you want me to check prices on things? How can I be of service to you tonight? Because my plans were somewhat derailed. Are you coming? Oh, you're going to come back up. Yes. Well, and thesis is Johnny, not thesis. Johnny's saying the night is still young. Sorry, it was a very thesis-worthy quote. But while you guys do that, I do want to remind you that I have three manuals out already. I am working diligently on my staff. Well, see, and that's the thing. My furry overlords are having issues. He isn't usually this scared without a thunderstorm. Now, a thunderstorm, he's terrified, and he usually hides somewhere. But he's just really lovey today, and I'm not sure why. So you guys can deal with it. Have I read or studied many? I have read and studied many old masters' thesis treatises. My favorite is going to have to be Nicola Giganti's The Rapier or The Soleil. It has to make the Tom Leone translation is the best. I find Giganti's take fascinating. I read I've read Giganti. I've read Fiore. I find Fiore and Agrippa not terribly suited for my body type, as a lot of Agrippa and Fiore is built around very long. Is built around very specific techniques. Oh, thank you, Mara Roy. And I am doing quite well. I'm trying to talk about swords and shenanigans as usual, but my cat Stuart here is, he's demanding attention, and I am a sucker. Can I put you down now? No? Please? Oh, my. Anyway, George Silver is an excellent read. I had to stop and go Kitty, Canadian, so either French, English. And I will talk to you guys about that actual question, because that's a good question. Okay, can you go down? But Fred Thibault, I do recommend, if you have the money, Maestro Ramirez's DVDs on the subject of basically any of the fencing, especially La Verdadera Destreza, or Spanish. If you want to know Spanish and Spanish magic circles, such as it is, it's a great thing. Now, how do I stop my left shoulder from asking for a break in relation for the socket from when swinging my stick? I have a similar problem. And what you're going to want to do is, excuse me, now, hi, is you want to do different exercises to build that up. When I do my nightly drills, I have added on top of my standard drills, which are 20 shots dual wielding out of all 8 of my guards. Yes, that's my thumb. Is it tasty? You need to be gentle. I don't know why you're chewing. Are your teeth bugging you? Do you need me to wiggle your teeth? Okay. Yes, it is distracting to do this with this lovable furball. It happens. But he is a fascinating Maestro Ramirez, simplified, brilliant breakdown. You need to watch his stuff. That's available through Palpable Hit Productions, the Anthony DeLongis' production company, who's done some amazing stuff. I love Anthony DeLongis. Now, I've read a few others, but I think, again, Gigante's Gigante's treatise, and there's a second one that's been found, apparently. I'm looking forward to getting my paws onto that. Really, sir? Must you? Why are you nibbling? You don't usually nibble. I'm talking too much, huh? Okay. Is my favorite because Gigante works best with my build, which makes sense because the Spanish weren't notoriously the tallest people and oftentimes had to fight taller people, which is part of the reason why the Spanish rapier was so very long. Because they figured, if I get off the line of attack, I can get where I need to be. Now, I've also read Talhofer 1.33 or I.33. Ring neck. The problem is I've read a lot of them, and what I did was look through them to find a basis that they all agree on and focus on that. Because if they all agree on it, that must be worthwhile. And then look at what they argue about critically and try to tailor it to my body type. Now, without standing, Gigante's stance is very much, ironically, if you've ever seen the classic pugilism stance, the classic boxing stance, it's a lot like that. Your body is back, weight mostly about 70-30 with 70% of weight on your back foot. And this is where you live. Fiore is way forward. Fabris. Fiore's in the middle forward, but he has this very distinct method of a hand parry position over his face. So if you see this kind of thing, that's Fiore. Fabris is all about like being bent at the middle, completely off balance, not my necessary jam, because it is harder to maintain balance. I keep a very practical, dynamic. So I alter between. We were looking at Thibault. We were looking at who is the other one? Oh, his brain fell off my back of my ears. I'm going to feel like an idiot when it comes up to this. But anyway, so I tend towards a very upright stance. You see it in later. Who did Old Steel, the composite? Between that and some, I've been reading a lot of Scottish people. I am terrible with names, and I like Scottish stick fighting. I very much like the Scottish approach to walking stick fighting, because I use a walking stick as a mobility aid much of the time. But are you done? Okay. I have to tinker what I train in to what I teach, and because my specialty is adaptive teaching, where I work with women, people with physical limitations, and survivors of either warfare. I've worked with PTSD vets, women who've survived very specific types of assault, and other forms of abuse. So what I do always has to be scalable and adjustable, because I'm not going to teach you, like if you go to most schools, if you learn from most people, they're going to say, this is the one way to do it, how I'm doing it. And they're going to show you what works for them, which is great. However, that's not always true. What I do is I give a basis that works for just about anybody, and then I encourage you and provide guidance, sometimes just being a smart dummy, asking the questions that you need to look up to be able to figure out what will be your style of fighting. So I had a lady I was training for a while. She was very, very graceful when she was dancing, classical ballet dancer. But due to some injuries and other issues, she had extremely weak grip and weak hands. So I developed a variant of basically small sword that would integrate with the specific movements that she was most comfortable with between ballet and actually belly dance. it was one of those where we just had to spend weekends hammering it out, and it worked fairly well. That's why I love what I do here, because since 2020, especially when I really started doing these streams to reach out to my local students and provide them support and encouragement to keep drilling, I've met some wonderful people, but there is nothing like being face to face with the proper sort of simulating objects and just working through my favorite part, which is helping somebody get started. And it's something that could very well work. So we'll see. So we'll see. I'd love to see you there. I'm sorry, Kitty. When you mentioned asking who was my favorite, and it really is Gigante. If I have to, Gigante, and then again, Thibault. I take the strengths of Gigante. I pepper it with some elements of Tai Chi that have broken into my style, will never leave it, and a few other things to the bizarre hybrid style that I fight, which is essentially the simple sword. It's a great book. I do encourage you to read it. And that's not me trying to sell my book. You can get it at libraries. You can get it at, you can get it from me. There are lots of ways you can get it. You can find it on Amazon. But for me, I distill everything to the simplest base is where I like to live. I like to go, this is frou-frou, this is frou-frou. This doesn't accomplish anything. This doesn't work for my body type. I don't have the physical strength or angles to pull this off, etc. It's not a manual, but per se. But whenever I get into this topic, especially with a female sword person, a sword lady, swordswoman, depends on whatever term you want to hold on to. Please, there is a book by Toby Beck, and it is called The Armored Rose. I highly recommend anyone who trains women, anyone who is a woman who either, I gotta say this right, anyone who is a cis woman or has the skeletal structure of being born biologically female or has a female skeletal structure. Do you understand what I'm saying? Read that. And the reason I'm saying read that is even with the changes that can happen through any number of the surgeries, your ligaments in your arms are still in the same place. Your wrists are still going to operate the same way. Your center of gravity will be different than that of a born man, usually. There are always exceptions. Many body types are out there. But to prevent injury, please, please, please read that and look into the armoring, because armoring women is different than just making men's armor fit women. The articulation is different because your legs move differently. There are reasons. The reasons why the way a woman walks often attracts the eye of a man is the mechanics of the hip are different. That means the mechanics of armoring are different. Stuart, you can't be back there, buddy. Come on. Anything that's verboten is where he wants to be. Stuart! Anyway, it is a vital book to read. I have others, and there are many, many Eastern things I am rather fond of. I'm also deliberately not listing the ones that I did not feel were completely worth without merit. So I'm skipping those. But modern books, and I'm not skipping your question, Thesis, I just have to hold on to this before I get there. I would recommend, believe it or not, contrary to the silliness we had with the gentleman who worshipped it, Guy Fieri. I went to say Guy Fieri, and that's not. Guy Windsor has written some amazing books. The Swordsman's Companion, and I believe The Duelist's Companion. They are wonderful volumes that I really recommend you read. They are more specific and perhaps more advanced adjacent than my own writings. I would say if you're looking online, Skallagrim has some points I agree with, some points I don't. He can be a little funny sometimes, but that's part of his shtick. Matt Easton at Scala Gladiatoria is a wonderful channel. If you're not following him, you absolutely should for sword history. I don't always agree with him, but I don't always agree with anyone. I used to do videos responding to Shadversity, but given his devotion to AI as a creative source, and the fact that a large part of the garbage that he puts out is Codswallop, I don't follow him anymore. I've not followed him for some time. I also believe in training women. And I do know historically many women were fighters. Not as many as perhaps are popularly theorized, but there is a word that Shivyesa, there is a reason the word Shivyesa exists in the French language, because that was the French term for the orders of female knights. Now, if there is a French term for the orders of female knights, one can presume there were female knights. And any better questions on that should be directed to my lovely wife. Which transitions us to Thesis's question. While you're here, is there any way I could get you and Amanda to be guests for tea time? Probably not until after New Year, but I would love it if it were possible. That is one of those where getting me is no problem. Getting Amanda can be challenging, as she is both rather camera shy and especially camera shy from an interview standpoint. Because if she doesn't feel she is a perfect expert in something, she isn't live often to speak out, exposing her actual knowledge. My wife is an incredibly sharp woman, and she's extremely skilled. But in the organization that she was part of, and from the trainers she had, they taught her a great many techniques and very few terms of vocabulary, in part to make it harder for her to seek out more training from anyone that they didn't approve of. This is something I have found to be remarkably common in certain medieval reenactment groups, or recreation groups, as it were. So that is something that could possibly happen. But it is something that can. Now, I'm hoping to have some stuff up for you guys, but honestly, so much of my time is caught up with what I am setting up for. I have a convention I will be working at the very beginning of November, LodgeCon in Peatone, Illinois, November 2nd and 3rd. We also have I'm trying to think of the things I'm allowed to talk about. Between now and Christmas, I have a great many commissions coming up because I'm an artist for hire, amongst other things. And I have several books I want to get out by the end of this year. So I have a whole lot on my plate, and I have deadlines coming quickly. I will be sure to get that done. But we're going to see. I'm really looking forward to 2025 because by 2025, a lot of stressors hopefully will be off my plate, especially if politics works out a certain way. So we're getting there, guys. But back to the shoulder thing before I forget, because I got derailed. If you put light weights and you do a motion that works this, so I need two objects. This is part of what I drill every night. But elbows tucked, rotate out. Make sure this is cleared with your doctor. I'm not a medical professional. But what this has done is it works the shoulder muscles here, and it works the back, which helps me with certain issues related to my hypermobility and prevents the slump, basically the hunch that people who are hypermobile can get. But it also has done wonders. A lot of stretching, a lot of slow work. If you have access to a team trainer, medical professional of any sort, please seek them out. Because if you have a trick shoulder, I have one as well. It was dislocated by a client when I was taking care of the severely mentally and physically handicapped in a altercation. And I had to reassess it and then put a gentleman in a hold for like 2, 4, 3 hours, something like that. And then a little bit longer. Yes. I just got a message on private messenger asking if something happened. It did indeed happen. So whatever I don't need to know about should occur to them. But the trick with it is going to be you want to just lots of slow reps, because if the connective tissue isn't working right, you have to build the musculature around it very carefully. So you're not working for bulk, you're not working for maximums. What you want is lots of sets of underweight, like where you can feel resistance, but it's not pressing too hard, and do lots of reps. That's what worked for me. Again, please speak with your consultant, but I think it would be a very good idea for you to look into that, and just get on YouTube and start looking at chiropractors and things, how to treat the damage from a dislocated shoulder. You get to do a lot of this X motion. Resistance bands are your friends. But again, it's slow, it's careful. Whenever you're doing physical recovery, you need to understand it will take a long time. And especially when what I found is I had to go to a chiropractor for some time because my lower back basically looked like a zigzag. It will take at least as long as it was out to train it to go back. And it's not going to happen fast. And for the rest of your life, you'll probably have problems with it. That's the reality. Welcome to aging. It sucks, but we can either complain about it or we can move forward. And I think you're the type, Johnny, to move forward. And I can understand I'm far from an expert on any given subject, but it would be nice to have a couple more female guests. I will try. You'll notice that she doesn't appear many times on my programs as well for the reasons. And yes, she can be on just audio if she doesn't want to be on camera. The other thing is you have to remember that my wife works directly with the public as an official individual. She is the director of the Benton County Public Library, which means she has to be very, very careful, just more so than I, and I have to be very careful not to be a negative reflection on her to affect her position in the community. And any group that works with children, you have to be very careful. We may be going into a time where it could be spookier for librarians. It's something I'm concerned about. So we will see. I will talk to her, and she's a full agent capable. I'm certain I can appear on the show at some point. But we've gone over our hour. I hope I've addressed your questions. Ms. Sarah, I will try to correct the weirdness with Instagram, apparently. I have had some issues. And Kitty, yeah, I hope I answered all your questions. And if you want to get back to me with anything else to help with the discussed project, let me know. It's been great seeing everybody. For the new people, I do this every week at 8 p.m. on Fridays. I usually don't have the show set up till about 20 minutes before, because sometimes on Fridays I have to run a little later than I want, and I don't want to inconvenience people more than I have to. I also do on my other network, the Nicholas Tockert channel, a show for supporting authors and artists and other creatives, and I do that 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. my time, which is Central Time. No, Eastern. My time is Eastern. I moved south, and I moved west, and I ended up in the Eastern Time Zone. That's Indiana for you folks. But I'm happy to have the streams. I hope it was entertaining. Till I see you guys next. Keep on wrong log out. Do your drills. Keep your eyes open. Be kind to yourself and each other. And as always, thank you for supporting your local sword master. I will see you next week. I love you, and you should too. Toodles, folks.